Have you ever walked the sterile halls of a hospital and felt something watching you? Have you ever heard whispers when no one was around? Some hospitals carry a dark history, one soaked in pain, death, and lingering spirits that refuse to leave. What if I told you that some of the most haunted places in the world aren't abandoned mansions or eerie graveyards, but hospitals where the dead still roam? Hospitals are places meant for healing, but they are also places of suffering. The walls of old asylums, forgotten sanatoriums, and wartime infirmaries have absorbed countless tragedies. Some of these places were sites of cruel experiments, mistreated patients, and deaths that were anything but peaceful. I worked the night shift at an old hospital for years, and the things I saw, the things I heard, they still haunt me. Let me take you on a journey into the unsettling world of haunted hospitals, where the spirits of the past still linger, waiting to be acknowledged. The Phantom Doctor. The first sign that something was wrong in our hospital was subtle. It started with whispers, hushed voices echoing down empty hallways late at night. At first I blamed exhaustion, that is, until I saw him, a doctor in an old-fashioned white coat, walking purposefully down the hall. I called out to him, assuming he was a resident doctor from another department. But when he turned the corner, he was gone. No doors had opened, no footsteps echoed. He had vanished into thin air. I later learned that this wasn't the first sighting of the Phantom Doctor. Decades ago, a doctor had taken his own life in that very hallway after a patient under his care had died tragically. To this day, he still walks the halls, endlessly searching for redemption. The Screaming Ward. There was one wing of the hospital that no one liked to work in. A closed-off psychiatric ward, abandoned years ago after a tragic fire killed several patients. They said the fire had been an accident, but rumors swirled that something more sinister had happened. One night during my rounds, I heard a scream echo from the empty ward, a shrill, agonized scream that sent chills down my spine. I ran to the source, expecting to find someone in trouble, but the hallway was empty. The doors, rusted and locked for years, were untouched. My colleagues later warned me about the Screaming Ward. No one worked near it alone, not after dark, because the spirits of the patients still cried out, trapped in the agony of their final moments. The Elevator to Nowhere. Another eerie tale surrounded the hospital's oldest elevator. Sometimes it would descend to the basement on its own, as if summoned by unseen hands. But the scariest part, there was no basement anymore. Years ago, it had been sealed off after a flood made it structurally unsafe. One night, I was the unfortunate one standing near the elevator when the doors creaked open by themselves. The button panel flickered, and without me pressing anything, the number for the basement lit up. My radio crackled, static mixed with something that almost sounded like breathing. Terrified, I stepped back as the doors slowly closed and the elevator descended. No one knows where it truly goes, but some say that if you step inside when it arrives, you may never come back. The morgue's unfinished business. Perhaps the most terrifying place in any hospital is the morgue. Death lingers there, and sometimes it doesn't stay quiet. One of the old morticians told me about a specific body locker, one that sometimes unlocked itself. No matter how many times they secured it, they'd find it slightly ajar the next morning. Some nights, workers swore they heard knocking from the inside. One night, curiosity got the better of me. I stayed behind after my shift, determined to see it for myself. As the clock struck midnight, the temperature plummeted. A soft thud came from inside the locker. My hands trembled as I reached out, barely brushing against the cold metal. Then, with a loud clang, the locker door burst open. There was nothing inside. I left that night and never returned to the morgue alone again. The nurse in room 309 was another place of terror. Patients who stayed there complained of feeling watched. Some claimed a woman in a nurse's uniform from another era would stand at the foot of their bed, staring at them through hollow, empty eyes. One elderly patient, a former nurse herself, once grabbed my hand and whispered, "She doesn't belong here." When I asked her what she meant, she simply said, "They buried her in the wrong place. She's still looking for her way home." Later, I discovered that decades ago, a nurse had died in that room, found slumped over after a long shift. She had been mistaken for a patient, and her spirit never left, still carrying out her duties in the afterlife. Hospitals are places of both life and death. Some souls leave peacefully. Others stay behind, bound by unfinished business, tragedy, or grief. These haunted hospitals remind us that the past never truly dies. It lingers, waiting for someone to listen. So the next time you walk through a hospital late at night, Pay close attention. That shadow in the corner of your eye? That whisper just beyond your hearing? It might not be your imagination. It might be something or someone trying to reach you. If you ever hear your name whispered in an empty hospital hallway, don't turn around, because you may not be alone.